Hello, and welcome to another Random Code stream. Make sure the desktop audio is on. Make sure my background music is on. And let's get into it. So there's basically two bugs that I want to fix for rocks. They're minor ones, but they're bugs. And I found them by actually referencing there's a library called, or libraries called .next. And they kind of have some like experimental things from .NET that actually, let's just go to the site so you can see what these are. .next. Wait, it was showing up. There we go. So these are things that may or may not end up showing up in .NET itself. Some of them I think already have, but I forgot about these libraries. I'm like, hey, I should try using some of these for my tests in rocks, and it uncovered a couple of bugs. So that's what I want to fix this morning, and I'm hoping to get them done. I may not fix any of the unit tests on the stream because that's boring. So I already got two branches out there for both of these, and I've gone through them enough to think I might be able to fix them within an hour or two, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So we'll see how this ends up. So with this first bug, this is an interesting one. I say that all the time. They're always interesting ones as far as I'm concerned. And if you're just wondering what Rocks is a mocking framework similar to MOQ or Unsubstitute, but it uses source generators to create all the mocking infrastructure. And by doing that, the API is dynamic in a sense for each target mock type that you have. It's all compile time mocks, so you get all the benefits of AOT, you get all the benefits of compile time rather than runtime creation, and you can basically do anything you want within C#. So we support pointers. I don't think those other two support it. I'm not sure. There's a task I have to look through like what Rock supports and what other ones don't and vice versa. Also, it's really fast. It's much faster than the other ones. Anyway, just for a little bit of an introduction of what this is. So this bug came up because of this audit trail type. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So what happens is there is an audit trail with a dim, and then audit trail of T that inherits from my audit trail and it has its own dim. And then we're trying to create a mock for audit trail. Okay. And what ends up happening is in the mock type that's generated for these shims, because there's these shims that are generated for interfaces that have default interface members. I'll talk about that a little bit more with the other bug. But the point is, as you can see here, I'm not taking into account the T parameter name. And so what I end up doing is accidentally generating two fields with the exact same name. Of course, I'm going to get ambiguous results. If you see like some of the errors, there's already a definition for it. There's an ambiguity between these two. So yeah, we have to create. I first thought of putting just the type parameter names after the name and doing it that way. But then I thought, these don't matter. Nobody ever sees them. So maybe what I should do is say for each type that I need to create a shim or call, I'll actually just arbitrarily call them 0, 1. I'll order them by the name alphabetically. Again, it doesn't matter. And then generate it so it's calling the right field or using the right field. And that way it will be repeatable for testing purposes, but I'm guaranteed to always have a unique name. And these fields, I don't have to worry about them colliding with, well, no, that's not true. Just thought about that. I probably, hopefully, am keeping that in mind. But they should not be colliding with any fields already. If we'll have to look at that. We'll have to see if I take that into consideration. So I already have a test in place for this here. And so if you look way down at the bottom here, where is it? Here. So you can see That's the bug. So, and this is where if I fix it, integration tests and code generation tests work. I'll fix any unit test discrepancies with like names and strings that don't match anymore later, because that's a little bit boring to watch. Okay. What's also interesting too is if you come down here, I'm not taking into consideration the type here. That's actually something that you don't necessarily see between the there's actually something I don't know if I actually have in the name here. Yeah, should also note that the private generic shim type isn't getting the type parameters added to the type name. So if you look here, this one is fine, but we're creating two here. That's another bug between the two. It doesn't know which one to use. So we really need to have a way to make sure that we're passing, like here, if there are any generic parameters, it should be this. Okay. So we do also need to keep that in mind. So when we're generating the class, let's actually, do I have a notes set up for this already? What is this bug? 374. Yes, I do. Okay, so we don't need that. Probably also needs the constraints. Maybe? I don't remember. Okay, so we've got a couple things to fix here. So let's keep that one up because we want to have that one there. But then if we go to here, and when we're building a shim, the name needs to be different. I don't know if we want the flat name or the generic name. Because if I remember right, well, that's just flattened. So that's interesting. Because it's getting the shim in front of it. So somehow... Oh, duh. Right there. Okay, so... let's see... Are we in debug mode? Yes. Let's see what we get for... So that's IOTA trail. That's a flattened name. It's a fully qualified name. The name. Names. We should have somewhere the I mean, we have the type arguments or the type parameters, but we should be able to It is a generic type. It knows that. Okay, so how do we... So yeah, we don't necessarily... Actually, this is an interesting point. We don't need to put a T here because that has... that's passed in here, but we definitely need a different name here. So maybe what we need is if we look at the call stack, what are shims? Oh, I got a... It's an equatable array of type mock model. Okay. Well, here we could do the name. And you notice that we're not using the naming context here for that name. And we should. Which is fine. We can say... these are the fields... And then we go through and then the constructors, because we're saying new whatever that is. Okay, so I think what we could do is say here, we're going to have to probably break this up a little bit more. For var I is equals 0, I is... Thank you. Okay, so what we want are var shim field names equals a new list of string. We want var shim constructor calls new list of string. So then here we're going to say for this one we're going to add I'm wondering, could I say I could. Let's just do this for now. Okay, so we're going to say add. And we're going to say here actually what we really want is var shim mapping as a new dictionary of the type mock model. And then this would be an int, a string, and a string. And so then when we want to say shim mapping of shim dot or I is equal to I, this thing, our shim type is equal to that. Put that in there and say and then we need a third thing. No, we don't. Okay, sorry. Shim for I. And then we want yeah, we could just use that as the name. Okay. So then we could say here new shim for I. There. So what we're doing here is we're getting the field name. We know what index is. We're getting the field name, and then that's going to be the type name. And so then all the fields here are what we could do is say value. Now let's give these names. Index string field name string type name. Okay, so then we can have at least, actually let's do this. Field name type name. So then we'll say here basically this whole thing. Value field name. And then this would be all of this except not it's this now. Shim mapping value dot no. This is not the this is no constructor call. Okay. And then actually let's change this to fine, type name. We're going to say it's shim for I. Okay. And then we'll say new here because that's what we want. Now, what we really should be doing, though, is saying a naming context here for this and then a naming context for this. Okay. So then here we use the naming context to pull out the field name. We also use the naming context to pull out the type name. And so whatever those would end up being, okay, so I think that sort of starts to get us to where we want to be. Now, I am assuming here that the order will always be the same. There's a general issue that I have, and by that I mean I have it in the repo, to order things consistently so that they always come out the same way. I'm just relying upon the order that Rosalind's giving me all the symbols and then just assuming that's always the same, which isn't a good thing to assume. It's worked up to this point, but this would fall under that as well, is that these need to be ordered so that they're actually correct. So I'm going to leave that off the table for now, but something... We don't need this anymore, so anybody who's calling this, let's force them not to do that. And so who's calling this? So the type has shims. And I would believe that would be the same thing that if I look who's calling this... 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. What are shims? Who's calling you? Type.shim type. Okay. Just had to go up the stack a little bit to make sure that I'm getting the right thing. So these are the same things that are getting passed into shim builder here. Except what we need is an int index. Okay. Because we're going to use that to say shim okay, because this wouldn't be right. Yeah, okay, here. Sorry. Do we really need, in this case, a dictionary? Is that even necessary? We could just say this is a list. Why do we have that there? We're just expecting the order to be the same. So we wouldn't even need this. We can just say it's a list of this. And then we'll say add that. Oh, whatever. That's your problem, not mine. So we have shim4. Now the naming context here, we don't even need the I, do we? So we can get rid of the index. And then we say here, it's the field name and the type name using the naming context. Shim4 index. That's what it is. So that's the type name. We use the types fully qualified name. Then we do that. And then we build all those out. Those are fine. I don't think we have to worry about those. We do want naming context here, though, to make sure that we're getting the right shim4 context. Okay. And now, like I said, this needs the naming context. Please tell me there's a naming context. There's not a naming context. Son of a bitch. Oh, that sucks. These are private types and private fields to the mock. Who is actually creating this naming context? The constructor builder. Okay, so maybe I'm overdoing it here. So we say that's the field name and that's the type name. So we do the constructors, we say this dot. Oh, wait a minute, we missed that. Did we miss that? Yes, we did miss that. This dot. So we put the fields there. We do the type name. That maps to that. No. Go away. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, var equals type. That's shims. There. Except, yes, this now needs... We don't need a variable naming context. We just need the int. Okay. Now we come into here. We say the name of the type is that. We could have kept that in, yeah, whatever. So that's the name. Those are the type arguments. That gets the methods. That gets the type itself. That's the type's fully qualified name, which we need. Okay, so that's all good. I think the builders don't necessarily need to know what this name is. Okay. I think what this should have done now is if we come to this test and we have this, I'm assuming the first one, where is it? Is the generic one. Actually, let's don't assume. I don't really know. So let's run this and see what happens. Oh, you are able to get everything. Okay. All right. Do this. All that jazz hands. Okay, so let's take a look at this first. Oh, crap. We missed these. Okay, fine. We did get up in the constructor 0 calls 0. This calls 1. So now we have 0, 0, 1, 1. But we're missing within the calls themselves when we want to call these. Because we do this, because by doing it this way, they end up calling the implementation from the interface. So, okay. But now we need to target the right thing. So, to do that, where, oh where... There's got to be something. Match case. So crap. the plot thickens. How do I know what the index is here? I don't. Sometimes you try to fix a bug and you think it'll be easy, and then you realize, holy crap, this is a lot more work than I realized just to fix something. I get what this is doing. This is basically the code that you see here, which, you know, that's the property one or the indexer one, but it's the same thing. It's, well, I'm just assuming I can just use this flatten name here. But what I really need is the indexer name, the index of that shim type. Because I'm assuming that's going to be the name that we use for the actual field name, and that's not true anymore. Now it's based on an index. And we have the same problem down here, I bet. Yep. Yeah, this just got a lot more difficult. Hey, Pranav. Hopefully I'm saying that right. How am I going to do this? I know what the problem is. The problem is at this point, what I need this to say is something like 0 or 1. But in these builders, I don't know what the index of the shim is. What I could do is basically force it. And so I can have that equatable array of type mock model shims. And then down here, I would say shims index. Oh, for God's sakes. Yes, I know it doesn't contain okay, well. Do I have the type. Here it is. And this is just copy pasta from, I forget where I lifted it from. It's somewhere where I lifted it. What I want here I don't want to do a span because that would get really, or even as a mutable array. What is the underlying thing for the array? Is a T. Yep. It's using as a mutable array everywhere. I wonder if we just finds it as mutable array index of, and then we can just, of course. Oh, for the love of Pete. Really? I'm not winning this morning. Shims is a type mock model. This is a type reference model. Why? Why is this a type mod? I'm not winning. This kind of sucks. What are you talking about? Of course it does. What? Oh, it's not a new. Never mind. I am really not winning. Oh, that's why. You can't see it. You can use a model context that I've created to create a type reference. Do I need a whole... I do have a model context. Can I just make these that? And then up here... Oh God, what am I doing to myself by doing this? These are methods. I don't know if this is the right thing to do at all. But, and getting back to the problem of I don't know. Crap. How do I? Well, let's go back. What it was is this. Oh, really? Oh my God. It's not what I meant. Oh, man. If you're wondering what I'm struggling with, hey, Harsh. If you're wondering what I'm struggling with is I'm trying to change the name of these types that I generate internally to a mock type. What I wanted to do is just have an index. But what I'm realizing is that the places that end up using it here don't use an index. It uses the name of the containing type, which makes sense. But the problem is I really want this to be like 0. And at this point, when it's generating those calls, it's assuming that it has what's called a flat name. What I really want it to have is the index. And I'm struggling right now based on how I've created this, how to get that in here. And not just here, but there's other places where it's going to have to do that as well. And as I've having the code all over the place, yeah, I can't change what this name means. I at some point I'm going to have to go back and just yeah, I don't want to use the whole naming thing I've done within Rocks is one of the sketchiest things that's in here. Because based on what I want from a name and how it... What was it doing up here? We were using a flatten name. Maybe what we do is what I originally proposed in here, which is to use something that you just append the property, or not the property, the type parameter names to it. And so if you come over back here, when you get into this like index builder, you could say shim builder. Well, I don't have it now because I took it out. Is you'd say get the shim name, because that is an sorry, this is a type reference model, and then that would all work. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is come here. If I remember right, I've already done that. So let's back everything out that I just did. Okay, now let's come back to shim builder. We have this, except now what we want to do is a little bit more complicated. We're going to say var name is equal to this. If shim type parameters length is greater than 0. Actually, we could probably do that all in one shot. It's going to look ugly. If that's true, we're going to do that, else that. Of course, now we got to fill in the gaps here. We're going to say string.join in the separator. No, it can't be. No, let's... This is going to get too gross to look at in code. If shim type parameters down length is greater than 0, what we want to do then is say name is equal to name, not append, not that, name, and then we want to put in here string.join. What we're going to do is join on shim type parameters select name. There, I think. Oh, and then we got a return name. I think what this is actually going to do is one and done everything. Except these. So anywhere where we say this.shim4, make sure it calls shim builder get name for the correct I-type reference model instance. So in this case, what we would say here is this.shim4 shim builder get shim name of that. And then down here, the same thing. Now for a lot of the tests that I already have, this is going to fall through because in the sense of there are no generics, so everything's just going to work. If I come back here though, not the method builder here, we don't care about that. Shim builder. So here we get the name of our shim. We're going to put that here. Except we have the problem of the mock this because we are building for the shims here. And these are the fields. Here we're doing the right thing. Here we're not. What we could do is say our shim name is equal to that. Shit. Sorry. That's okay. Shim 4, and then we could say like shim IRA builder T or whatever. And so the whole type name is, or our name for our private, but that's fine. Actually, that's fine. So what we could do here is say shim builder get shim name for the type. That actually is correct because all of these are expecting that to be that name. That actually works, I believe. So we did this in the setter. We've got to do this in the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the constructor build. If I go to like the indexer here, we're doing the right thing here, and now we're doing the right thing. Okay, so that's the setter. Where's the getter? Here, now we're doing the right thing there as well. But that's just the index builder. So anywhere we say this shim 4, which is not a lot, property builder, shim builder dot get shim name, and let's copy this, and then let's do that. Okay. Same thing here, except we take that out. That. We got that right already, and that right already, and that's correct. Okay, and so now when we're building the shim, that should all work. Let's generate the code and see what happens. It fails as expected because now we got to get the generated code. And we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so let's see what this looks like now. Still didn't do it right. Although it's getting the field name right. Oh, let's keep going. Trail T. It would be right if this was right. And then this would be that. Trail T. Trail. Yeah. Trail T. So it's close. We're just not, when we're doing the private read-only fields on the mock. Where was that? Let's close these out. Was that a mock constructor builder? That's on the no, we want the mock builder itself. Mock type builder, I believe. It builds the types. These are building the shims. Here are the fields. Ah. No, not all that. Not all that. Okay. Shim builder. And now if we come into this test, what we should see is this is a T. What happens now? Still fails. Why does it fail? Okay, so something still isn't quite right. Shim for iot. That's right. Yes. Right. That is actually correct. Okay. Okay, fine. Where are you? Shim for. Shim for shim. Say shim many times. Shimmy shim shim. Hey! Hey! It passed. Yippee! All right. We do want to put this in an integration test. Let's first things first. So that's done. Run all integration tests, integration and code generation tests. No, we don't need that. So now this is the list now of things we got to do. Run all code generation tests. Add an integration test for the unit test scenario. And then update any broken unit tests. And the reason why they be broken is because the text changed. And so now there's going to be text differences and yeah. But what I want to do, this is the big one, because if this doesn't break anything, and when I run the code generation tests, it gets rid of the error that we're currently seeing when we have that duplication thing, that will be an indicator that we definitely fixed this. So let's do that. So let's go up to the integration tests. Let's say run those. It succeeded. They passed. Okay, let's run all the tests now. Let's make sure that we're actually test with types. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of time to run. It takes about 4 minutes. But I can use that time now to explain what the hell I was doing. The thing that I was struggling with was trying to come up with unique names for these shim types. Are basically types that I've generated that when you have a default interface member, if you don't set up an expectation for something to be called, what you're saying is I'm expecting the default to be called. And so what it does is that it will turn around and call on these shim types that base method, which is the default interface implementation. And so it kind of like does this rerouting to end up making a call. There's a thing that's out there to say maybe at some point C# will add in the future a way, because you can't just do base dot. That doesn't work. So you have to do this kind of runaround to get it to work, and it does. But as I was saying, if you had two types with the same name except one had type parameters, then it broke because it was generating the same name. And so just by having it now use the shim builder name, where it is also putting the type parameter names appended to it, that works just fine. If it looks ugly, it's ugly, but we don't care. Don't care if it looks ugly or not, because that's internal. You don't ever see that when you're using the library. That's an implementation detail of the mock that I'm generating. So that's good, actually. But we'll see when we run all this stuff. There might still be some errors showing up, but if we fix this one, I think it should get down to 4 errors that we're seeing. We'll see in a couple minutes. You know any good jokes? What I should do is have a list of dad jokes, corny jokes, and just have them plastered here, because when I'm running this, I need to have some filler. And I don't know a good list of dad jokes off the top of my head. So maybe I just have that printed somewhere right next to me, and then I can start seeing some awful dad jokes while this is running. Can I think of one that I've just heard? No, I can't. I don't know any good jokes off the top of my head. I used to have some for when I did a talk on performance and I was showing how to use benchmark.net, and I'd actually run it. It would take a bit of time. I've now changed my approach, which is I don't run it because I'll say to people it takes some time to run, and then here are the results. But I used to have it run, and then I would just use that time to say a couple of terrible jokes. And yeah, in this case, I don't have a choice. That I have to run these to make sure that I'm feeling I've fixed them. I'm to the W's. That's a good sign. I'm getting close to the end. Let's see how much I broke. Come on, Z-Logger. Twilio. They have a bunch. I know they have. I should change this because I want to... Yeah, down to 8. That's good. That's actually really good. And this one is the other one we're going to fix. So yeah, that's a really, really good sign. Okay. So let's commit this. 3, use shim name consistently everywhere and append type parameter names to the shim name. Okay, cool. So that took care of this. Add an integration test. We can do that quick. No, not there. Up here, I'm still getting used to how I've restructured all my stuff. So we want to have an integration test for this just to make sure that we're actually doing the right thing. We don't have shim tests here. Well, you know what? It's a good time to have shim tests. Okay, how am I structuring these tests? So I have a namespace of shim test types. We're going to grab these two, put them there. And then we have our test class here. We want to have, God, I wish I had my, oh, it did show up here. Where's it going to put it? Did it update? Yeah, it updated this. And it put it down here. Did I actually? Hold on. I did. Oh. Well. That's cool. Let me update something here real quick. So we're going to say anywhere where there's this, we want to say rocks.rock there. Except that went too far because I already changed that. Perfect. And now we want to have, we're having a space build type dot. We want to have a space rocks.build type dot. There. And now we don't need that anymore. And now we're using, now the thing is it's not ordered. But we really don't care. Okay, so now what we want is, no, not a fact. It really bothers me. Public static void create. It really bothers me that Visual Studio has this bias towards XUnit. Expectations is equal to a new I audit trail of create expectations of, we don't care, string. Okay. And actually we want our repository using, got to get used to my own way of doing things, new rock context. And what we want here is expectations to be repository create this. And we don't want to set any expectations because we want these to fall through to the other ones. So we want to say var mock is equal to expectations dot instance mock dot perform and mock dot work. If I run this, what happens? Success. And that's actually exactly what we wanted because this is redirecting our calls to these. We're not setting expectations that if this makes sense, like if you have a virtual method that you're not putting an expectation on, what you're saying is the default implementation, the base implementation is fine. I don't want to capture that I'm calling that. And so that's the same thing that's happening here. I just want to use the default implementations here. So cool, that's in place. How many do I have to break or unbreak in here? Let's run that and just see. This doesn't take as long, but it takes long enough. I'm going to say 20. 20 are broken. Only 6. Okay, cool. Let's blast those up because then I can, I'm guessing in all likelihood, they're just naming things. Yeah, you see, it's shim for shim. I have an notation. Shim for shim. And then shim for shim. Then that's the right name there. And that's the, so this should be fine now, right? Yep. Okay, so let's fix this one. Shim for shim. And then we call it down here. And then that name is fine. Okay, what about these? Shim. And then we do that. That's good. Well, hopefully it's good. Shim. Okay. Okay. This one only has one. Good. So that's easier to fix. Okay, and then there should be one more. Shim. Okay. Da, 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 da. Yada yada. Okay, so let's run all the tests again. See what happens. Good, they all passed. Yay, I think we are good. Commit 374, all tests pass. Time for a merge. We committed, let's push. All right, give me a minute to manage our branches. Let's go here. Merge that into there. Main, let's push. Oh, I forgot one thing. Let's go back to here. Always gotta in the package. No, not the package. Here. Okay, fixed. Shim types now include generic type parameter names. And this relates to 374. Okay. Forgot about that. Git commit. Change log update. Push that. We don't have to push it, but let's go here. Push that into there. One change. It's just the merge of the change of the change log. Push that up. And now we're good. Delete this. Come here. Delete that. And we're done. All right. Close issue. Yippee. Okay, the other one is this one. This one actually I initially thought was going to be really difficult. Before I do that, let me... Oh yeah, I never actually, I thought I created a branch for it. I apparently did not, but that's okay. So let me explain the issue first, and then we'll go and hopefully solve it. The problem is very subtle. You have an int here. You have an interface. You have a property that has an emitter. You have an interface that also that interface has a method or member that has a default implementation. So the problem is right here in our shim code, we're trying to do this where we redirect to the mock and call it. And you can't do that in an emitter here. You can look at this error if you want to find out why. It's not very well described. It was really hard for me to go, why does this matter? And so what I thought is what we could do is just not do anything like you're actually seeing here. And so we just don't call it. Now, one thing I'm also thinking of, and I'm not going to do it to fix this. I'm just going to say if in the shim we have a property that has an emitter, automatically do nothing. And that should fix this. What I'm really wondering in my head is this shim, this getter should never be called. Because if you come back, well, you won't see it until I generate the code. So let's do that. Let's get, let's create a new branch. And then let's make a test. Where do we want to put it? Shim builder tests. Good as any other. Public static async task generate when shim has init property async. Okay, so let's grab the code that we know will cause the problem. Move this up a little bit over. Grab this. And it's going to be called that. Let's grab this variable. Okay. So now let's generate the code. Yep, going to open the test log. That's fine. Get that out of the way. Grab all this. that into here. And then, what are you doing? Go up. Uppies. So then we do that, run it again, because we gotta get the make code. Okay, come down here. Okay, so now we should be getting the error. That says something like, yeah, that. So now we're getting the error. Okay, but the thing is that I want to show real quick is this shim type that's generated, we're not generating it for the thing that has the default implementation because it should route to the interface's default implementation. This should never be called. If you look up here for max buffer size, we're looking to see that if you have a handler set for it. And if you don't, we don't try to call the shim, we throw an exception. Same thing down here. And so what I started to realize is for this bug, I'm just going to change this so that this has nothing. But then that made me think, why am I not doing that for all of these? And in more important terms is why am I not making a shim act like a make? Like just do this. Now, of course, we wouldn't generate this. But I'm saying the way we implement members in a make is the way we should be doing them in a shim. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't if you don't know how this works underneath the scenes, but that's fine. But that is something that I want to... Oh, crap. I didn't save this. Fine. I'll save it now. Whatever. Done. So now what I want to do is, as a side... What did I just... Oh, I made a new one. Okay. Side note. Create an issue to change shim member implementation to do what a make does. Then we probably don't need to pass in the mock to the shim, and it'll make things cleaner. But I don't want to mess with that right now. I just want to fix this bug. Repos. Rocks. Docs. Notes. Name this, that. Cut. Not, no. Of course. Thank you. No. Oh my God. There we go. Okay, so I just want to fix it for now because everything still works. So the only thing I want to do now is, if I come back up to here, is to make this such that it does that. And the way to do that is to come into Analysis, Builders, Shims for both a property. If it's an init, what we want to do is that. Why are you barking? Oh, God, because I need to... You know what? We can just do this now. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's the property, and then the indexer, we can do the same thing. We just do that. Now, what I want to do is also, like I just said, I want to change these eventually so that they're doing what the the make type is doing. And they might have to handle refs and outs and all those other things. But this should now fix it. And it does. Yippee. Okay, so that fixes that. Let's see how many tests were breaking, if any. Because I might have a test that just doesn't cover it. Because my goal is to get 9.1 out the door today or tomorrow. There is one issue that I have as a feature, and I think I'm just going to either defer it or push it to documentation. I was thinking of having a validation. I'll cover that if I can get this fixed in time. Okay, those all pass. Let's clean, close, open. And let's just run our integration tests. Cool. While the code generation tests are running, I'll explain this other thing that I want to potentially just nix. Not that. Here. So this is originally inspired because I wanted to put in a suppressor for this thing with value task. What I wanted to also do is say, well, wait a minute. If you're going to pass me a value task as a return value, and your expected call count is greater than 1, if you set the return value but not a callback, you really are probably using that value task incorrectly. And so what I wanted to do is have some kind of validation thing in place for a handler so that as you're changing these, I'm calling validate to make sure that you're not doing certain things wrong. Like you're giving a value type as the return value, but your expected call count might be greater than 1. The other one I came up with recently is the fact that maybe what I should do is check to see if you've set both the callback and the return value, because that's not an error, but it's led to some confusion. Because you almost are expecting both to be called, but that can't happen because the callback actually is responsible for returning the value. And so return value is ignored. What you probably really want to do is know that so you don't even set return value in that case. The mock underneath the scenes looks at the callback first. If that's set, then it invokes it. If it's not, then it just uses return value. And so what I thought was using a validation to say, hey, if you've set both, throw an exception because you should not be doing that. What I could put in documentation is just to say if you've set both callback and return value, callback is the only one that's called and return value is ignored. You must return the value in callback. For methods that have a return value, if it's void, well then return value, it uses a different handler where there is no return value type. So I thought maybe making that as a validation, but I'm kind of sitting here going, maybe what I want to do is I'll just document this for now and then put in something stronger in the future to have this validation on the handlers. The other thing to keep in mind too is the thing with validate is that there's talk about pushing a lot of the async generated code in the state machine into the runtime itself so that C# doesn't have to generate all that. And that should make things quicker, faster, better, blah, blah, blah. But there was an API review that Microsoft did, and I have it linked here. And they said that rules for async will probably be revisited. And so, for example, they said value task will be meaningless. Now, that doesn't mean value task goes away, because you can't just expect people that have been using value tasks to say it goes away. But I think it wasn't clear why they said it would be meaningless, but meaningless in that you need a differentiation between a task and a value task, because they said effectively this change makes it so that you don't need a value task. So that becomes meaningless, but that doesn't mean it goes away. So I think I might still do this, but I'll push that off for the future, and just leave it up to documentation right now. All right, let's see how far along we are in the fix here. And hopefully this gets rid of all the red. Come on, Twilio. I know you're the one that's at the end here. Nice. I'm not going to put in an integration test for this because of this issue that I just talked about, where I want to have a feature in that changes how the shims are implemented. That basically they should effectively be makes and they don't need to call back to the mock. Because I did it that way for a reason. And I want to make sure that if I change that it's correct. So I have tests around a lot of that already, so none of that should break. But this one becomes just a case of all the other ones, so it shouldn't matter, if that makes sense. The point is, don't really need an integration test for this one. All right, so we have the notes on that. I think we have fixed this. Commit, no opping the emitter in a shim. Time for a merge. Oh, get, commit. Nope, no, get. Nope. There. Shim types with an init property now work with no issues. Sure. Git commit 373 change log update. All right, let's do the manage merge main push delete there. And now we come here and we close that, come down to here. We should see those, close the issue. Okay, so if I go to my issues here and I go to my milestones, we're almost close because it's this one here. So what I'm going to do is off camera, I'm going to just put in a little bit in the docs so that it's clear that if you set callback and return value, callback will be invoked and the value for return value is ignored. You should return what you want in the callback. And then maybe in the future, I put this validation in. I really want to get a 9.1 out the door just because I do. And then I've got some things slowly but surely to get ready for some conferences later this year, later this summer. A workshop that I'm doing. So I need to get all that started and slowly ready to go. I have a couple of ideas for some streams in the future I want to do and have fun with it. So I kind of want to have this as like a cutoff point and do a couple different things for a little while and then come back to this. So I think the biggest thing that I'm going to do for the next version is try to at least support static abstract members. That may crash and burn horribly, but it's something that I really want to try to do because I think I can do it. And it might be a nice thing to actually have support for. So that would be the next thing. But I'm at the point where I have enough things fixed and little things added, and I want to move on and do other things. So I'll do all that off camera. Hopefully I'll have a 9.1 out in NuGet either by today or tomorrow. And then in a future episode, I'll do some more things. So with that, I am going to stop the stream. I want to thank everybody for either watching live or in person. If you have not subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. Would greatly appreciate it, as I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So any new subscription helps. So thank you in advance for doing that. And with that, I'm going to stop the stream. One quick thing. This afternoon, I am going to be playing Hollow Knight and continuing my playthrough of that game. So that will be this afternoon and potentially this evening after The Last of Us. So with that, thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.